All right, good morning and good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our second episode of our Digital Commerce 101 series, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. I'm Rodney Rodriguez. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer, and I'll be your host today. And I'm really excited to have our special guest, Mr. Jason Stokes, the CEO, founder of the full-service e-commerce agency, Eastside Co. Jason, thanks for being with us today.
No, thank you, Rodney. Really excited to hopefully share some valuable insights a little bit later on in the presentation.
Great. Now, I just want to remind everyone again that the goal of these webinar series is to break down the website experiences for some of the world's leading B2C and B2B brands and share our perspective of what works and what doesn't. And what we do is we evaluate these site experiences on 4 key areas. First is around navigation. So how easy is it to get to the content that the shoppers are looking for? The second area is around product discovery. Our company's providing that rich educational content that helps their buyers learn and become educated about your products and services. And then the third is about data quality. Are we presenting the right product specs that are complete and consistent so that they could compare all their options in front of them and eventually choose the right one? And then lastly, mobile friendliness. As mobile traffic has surpassed desktop, if it isn't, mobile first, should be a key priority for any business that does that works on the digital channel. Now, just some housekeeping items. We really want everyone here to engage. So please, we're going to open up the chat lines. So please say hi and let us know where you're dialing in from. We're always interested to see where people are dialing in from the globe. So I, for myself, is dialing in from Toronto, Canada. So if there's any Canadians out there, hello. Yes, and please don't be shy on asking questions. If there's an interesting talking point between Jason and I that you want to add to, please drop that in the chat, and Jason and I will do our best to bring that into the conversation. So I want to pass it over to Jason just to, if you could give our audience a brief background of yourself and what your company does.
Yeah, thanks, Rodney. Hi all. Really nice to meet you. Nice to be here. I'm also in London. Hi, Lucinda. So Eastside Co is a full-service e-commerce agency focusing on building out websites and experiences on Shopify and Shopify Plus. We also collaboratively support a lot of our merchants on growth and marketing strategies as well. So rather than just building a pretty website, we help clients scale and enter new markets and grow new verticals based on a lot of research strategy and execution of tactics as well. So hopefully, along with Rodney, we'll be able to provide some value a little bit later on as to, as he mentioned, the good, the bad, and the ugly of some sites that are out there in the wild at the moment.
That's awesome. Thank you, Jason. And it's great seeing that you're focusing on Shopify platform. I know Shopify is dear to my heart as that's one of Canada's tech darlings. So glad to see that you're building and helping grow businesses on that platform. So let's jump right into it. So the 4 brands that we're going to be evaluating and looking at today is first, Beko, which is a home appliance brand. Second, we have Corning, which is a B2B materials company that focuses on innovations on glass ceramics. We have Kitchenaid, which is another global home appliance brand. And finally, we've got Sony, one of the leading consumer electronics brands. All right, so Beko, so they're prominently a fast-growing home appliance brand in Europe, but they're also making some growth in the Americas. So today, we're going to be examining the Becco.com US site. You ready to do this, Jason?
Go for it.
All right. So the first area I just want to, so going back to the criteria, one of the areas that we want to focus on is site navigation and how easy is it to navigate and find the content that you're looking for. So you'll see here, we've also got a mobile view. So we'll be looking at both views simultaneously and provide feedback on both the mobile and the desktop experience. But let's take a look at the menu first. All right, so when you look at the menu, you got your products, your support, your about page, then you have a link for partners like designers and architects and so forth. So a pretty straightforward navigation. And I think navigation needs to be as simple and concise as possible. Now, if I click on products, what I like about it is that it's very visual. So it brings, the appliance story to life. However, the one thing I did notice though, is that the options to get deeper to the categories were a little hidden. So you'd have to focus your attention closer to the fold and look at the different category links, and also too with the white text on some of the light background, that contrast made it a little bit difficult to notice these category links. Yeah, so I'm not sure. I'd love to get your perspective, Jason, so far on how they're presenting these category topics.
Yeah, I mean, looking at this from a mobile point of view as well, and the vast majority of traffic now being mobile. They've designed their site in a very, I don't know what site you're seeing as well. The menu being at the bottom rather than at the top, which is fairly non-standard, non-traditional. It's nice to have a point of difference as a brand. It's nice to have a point of difference if you're an edgy, quirky fashion brand, but unification and I guess elements being where you expect them to be would be something, I had to look and search for that.
Yeah.
If it's not where you expect it to be, it forces you to actually have to think, and you want, I guess, the process as a customer visiting your store for things to be where they're expected. Like, you wouldn't, or a lot of companies now don't design a product page without the add to cart, add to basket button being where you would expect the customer to look. Like, everybody has got so used to shopping online now that I guess elements for navigation, for for add to cart, for calls to action, you get a certain amount of unification and expectation when it comes to traditions across thousands of sites that everybody visits. If you put the add to cart button somewhere completely out of the way that nobody else would look for it, your conversion rate, I imagine, would plummet. So yeah, for me, I think as an optimization, I don't know the rationale behind doing that. I think there would be room for improvement in moving that to the top, but that's, these are all opinions. These aren't backed up by facts and figures. We don't have access to BECO or any of the statistics from any of these sites to actually qualify and quantify the data and the actual experience of the site. But yeah, I think traditionally, I've always only ever seen that at the top. I would be asking the designer why.
Yeah, no, I agree a lot with your sentiment, because especially when you're lining up with other appliance websites or any other shopping site for that matter, there is that familiarity of, the navigation. There's a paradigm that people are comfortable and used to with. However, what I like about the menu on the bottom is if you're doing that one-hand scrolling, you don't have to stretch your thumb all the way to the top and force yourself to use two hands. So if you're in that one-handed mode because you're already maybe have a glass of water, a cup of coffee, maybe who knows? Maybe the paradigm might shift.
For these ever increasing sizes of iPhones, then yes. Where? Yeah.
Absolutely. So I'm just going to go dive deep into one of the categories for a moment because we do have other sections. So if I click on refrigerators and freezers. Oh, actually, before I do that, let me just go back to the home page. So here, they've got some branding messaging, right, that helps tell the story of the Beko brand. And then here you have your links to the different categories, which I still think is important, but might be a little redundant from your navigation. But as we scroll down through the homepage, we could see how we start to incorporate some lifestyle content, which is, I think, really great for brand building, showing recipes, and then driving deeper into other areas of the sites. So whether it's looking at your kitchen suite products or deeper into categories. But I think they do a pretty good job in terms of showing some really nice imagery to bring some of the categories to life.
I think with a brand like this as well, like I'd be always asking the question. I mean, it's not a very sexy product. You're there because you need a new appliance, or you're shopping around to solve a problem. It's either to keep my food cold, to heat my food, or to clean my clothes. You're looking for an appliance. These are considered purchases. I think the biggest thing for me would be, why do I buy from Beko? What is it about them that separates from every other supplier or manufacturer that I may be considering? I think Dyson does an incredible job of this, that sits alongside the other side of it, where it's a very distinctive product.
Yes.
Whether it's no loss of suction, not a sausage, or whatever their messaging is, they know how to really emphasize and sell why them over any other of their competitors. And I think that's super important for a brand, and they've encapsulated some of this here, but maybe some of that above the fold would have helped shine through a little bit more.
Absolutely. That's so important, not just from a B2C, but also from a B2B perspective, right? So no matter what you're buying, it's always convincing your buyer why us. Totally agree there. And then just one last thing on the homepage here is, because there is some heavy scrolling, one of the things is, maybe that's another reason why they don't have the back to the top button, because your menu's at the bottom. So I was just going to say that there's no back to top call to action, but I guess they're changing the paradigm. So going back to the refrigerator category. So one of the things I've noticed here is, when you start going through deeper into the category, what I do like is that at least it shows you the number of products. So it sets the expectations of how many SKUs you're going to have to do your research on. So if I click onto freestanding, since it has the most products, then it gets you into the listing page. Now, from my perspective, jumping into a listing page, seeing a lot of SKUs, seeing a lot of some attributes like width, volume, some key features, it's pointing me so down the funnel of the site journey that I still don't know what type of fridge I need, whether it's a French door or side by side. I think there's opportunity for Beko here to educate the customer, on the category itself. I'd say even from a category, like when you think about the appliance shopping journey, right? You're not in the market that often for shopping for an appliance. And if you think about a first-time buyer or a first-time homeowner, and they're buying this for the first time, they need a lot of guidance on how to choose the right product. So I think right now, from the main navigation and getting straight to a listing page, I think it could lose a customer simply because they're not educated enough.
Yeah, I completely agree. With any product like this, there's obviously a lot of technical specifications and a lot of considerations that are, far beyond just the aesthetics of a product. Does it fit within my kitchen or the rest of the rest of the appliances that I've got? Size, capacity, style. It was always really, really hard when you've got very content rich and technical specification rich products to display them on a collection page. Ultimately, I don't think they've done a bad job. There's the use of the compare function is nice to see, to be able to sanity check against a number of models what the core differences are, and to do that without actually having to click into each product. It's a really nice feature to see. Maybe a quick view that gives it a little bit more information than just the hover over kind of pop-up state would be something to potentially consider as a next step. Of course, the speed considerations there when you've got the website being browsable and indexable might not work as well on mobile. Again, so that there are considerations, but all in all, I guess it is a very, very complex and hard product to pack a lot of information in to a collection page. I mean, you could even potentially look at doing this in a list format rather than a grid format. I don't know whether there's the ability to be able to do that and kind of switch the view so that you actually have, the listed out technical specifications all in line rather than being kind of grid, which, I guess works if you're, buying trainers and you want to see kind of, all the different trainers in a kind of, really nice, aesthetically pleasing view. That might be a consideration if that hasn't kind of been actioned as an option or toggle.
Yeah, I like that suggestion, and you see that a lot on a lot of e-commerce websites, because the way that people shop and buying behaviors are very different. Some people, may prefer to scan, get that quick nugget of information, right, to get deeper into a product. Or some people just might want to do their research up front very fast and want more content to the surface. But yeah, I think that's a great suggestion that they could do is introduce a list view as well.
And also something else from that we're seeing kind of quite often now is automation on an interaction on from a chatbot point of view. You've been on collection page for X amount of time. Are you having trouble working out which products to go down? And a customer service pop-up kind of coming along. There's a number of ways to engage customers that have been on a page for quite some time, wondering whether they actually need a little bit of help and guidance and professional support in expert support in making a decision. You see that from some very, very large retailers, and in the UK, you think about Currys Dixon's and all of these kind of other competing brands that
I love how you brought that up, because if you think about, I know especially in Canada, where I think we've had the longest lockdown in the world, I believe. A colleague of mine sent me an article, and you think about the in-store experience, for a purchase like this, where you almost rely on a knowledgeable sales associate, right, help you understand, to help you learn about the product, right? Because the sales associate, through a conversation, they could really understand, what your needs are, and based on their expert knowledge of appliances, they could recommend you the best one. So that's why, I love that suggestion of how do you incorporate more chat conversational technologies into the experience. But with the comparison tool, as you mentioned, I do see that Becco's doing a pretty decent job with having consistent data attributes so that you could compare and see the differences between the products. And they even have a nice feature here where you can only highlight the differences, which is pretty key. But the one thing I've noticed, though, is especially for a product like this, one key attribute that's missing is price. And I think that's a major factor into making a decision. So, and the only way to get to a price is if you click down deep into the product details page. You actually have to click on where to buy, get off the Becco experience, and go to a retailer website. And it's at least in the examples that I saw, you would have to go from, you'd actually land on their landing page as opposed to deep linking to their product page. But when you do get to their product details page, I believe that they present content in a very digestible, easy to understand fashion. So I love the use of the icons, to show, to explain the features and the benefits. And when you scroll down, they really bring their features to life with demonstrative imagery and very vibrant lifestyle, high resolution images that really bring these features to life.
Where are the reviews on the page?
Yeah, so they get down to the bottom of the page. So with the reviews, I have seen pictures, or some models did have customer pictures included, which I think that type of social proof is very impactful, just because you could see, how a real customer is using the product and seeing how it's actually being, how it's used in a real context. So having that is, especially for this type of category, I think is quite critical.
Yeah, I think, again, because it's a product that everybody uses and everybody has one, and it is a need rather than a nice to have. It's not something that we're going to take photos of that you could use as user generated content for Instagram potentially. But there is, I guess when people are making a considered purchase, people are going to be more considered in how long that product is going to last and what other buyers' experiences are going to be, especially with the price point of a product like that. These are, like I said, they are considered purchases. It's leading on that social proof and probably elevating a little bit more. Pardon me. The gold stars at the top are great. I would probably make more of a focal point of that, and then turn that a little bit more as a way to really build a little bit more social proof and build in some more trust as to what previous buyers think of the product and the buying experience potentially. Yeah,
and one of the things I did notice too is although it's most of these are North American, but if there is similar SKUs that are sold in other regions, there's probably an opportunity to syndicate if products are also available in other regions, to show, to display here, because just because it's in North America, it's the same product used in another region, it's still the same product. So I think having global syndication could help with not just the volumes, but potentially with the quality of the reviews. So I know we want to budget, maybe 10 minutes or so for each brand. So I do want to get to some of the key takeaways for the Beko website. So I'm just going to queue up here our slides. So I'd say one of the key things, especially for this category, is educating that shopper, right? So how do we make sure that we're helping them learn, right? So when you think about content like buying guides, so what to look for in a dishwasher, what to look for in a refrigerator, this is very useful content that could help increase the knowledge of your shopper so that they can eventually, make a decision to purchase. And if you think about this buyer, as we mentioned, they're not in the market often. You probably buy an appliance every 8 to 10 years. And by then, there's probably so many new innovations that come in that whether you purchased one before, you still have to learn more of what's the latest, technology on these appliances. And then the other key takeaway is, make sure that the data points that help customers decide on purchasing, make sure we have those key data points. And price, I'd say in this instance, was a critical piece of data that was missing, because from there, although they could compare and see different specs, it's hard to quantify the value of which product might be better for them or more suitable, without having that price, that product attribute. Do you have any final thoughts for Beko, Jason?
I guess lots of room for improvement. Focus on the why Beko as a starting point. Look at potential unification from a navigation point of view, especially on mobile. Don't make the customer think too much. Get them thinking about your brand and not how to navigate the site. As you mentioned, the price being missing is, that's the question that I would probably be having going through the comparison. It's okay, what's all these features are great, but what's the difference in RRP or cost gonna be? And lean more on the good reviews that you've got, make more of a focal point of those, and emphasize the trust that you have and the reputation that you have as a brand. But yeah, I mean, all in all, I know that you've marked it very, very bad. There is lots of room for improvement.
Yeah, no, those are great perspectives. And I think answering the why, especially in this market, now that you're growing into this market, there's a lot of competition. So making sure that customers understand why is absolutely critical. All right, so we're off to our next site experience, which is Corning, which is a world leader in material sciences. So they build technologies around glass, ceramics, and optical physics. So today we're going to focus on the fiber optic business unit. So this one, get ready for this one. All right, let me queue up the Corning website here.
I'm just doing exactly the same, but just on my phone. So, oh, okay. All
right, so here's their main corporate website.
I was going to say, do we have anybody from any of these brands online? I'm not insulting a lot of people, am I? No, we do actually. Okay. Sorry, Rodney, you were.
Yeah, so this is their corporate website, and when you click onto their products, then you can see all the different lines of businesses that they're in. We could also focus on the markets that they focus on. And then we've got some more educational content on the innovations that they provide. So I think this is a simple entry point to get into some of the key areas of the Corning business. But it is a massive company, so that's why we are going to be focusing on the optical communications. We could probably do a dedicated session on on Corning. But when it comes to optical communications, and I'll just do this on mobile as well. Here we're presented with a lot of content, right? So we've got a carousel that has 4 different banners that will push either their latest product or has some branding messaging around some of their innovations. And as we scroll down, there's more content that we could dive into that will share more stories. And to me, this looks like more educational content to build some thought leadership around, the fiber optic space. Now, when you start going down, the thing that I noticed though is that these titles, they're hyperlinks, but the call to action doesn't seem too prevalent or apparent. Like it is easily something that you could scroll past through, especially in mobile, because when you scroll down and see an image, I wouldn't necessarily think that this title, is a hyperlink to get into deeper content. And as we scroll down, just to prove a point, we've got other areas of the website that have more clear call to actions, like the Learn More link. So I think, from a site navigation standpoint, I think we could help guide customers by using more consistent uses of call to actions on different sections or components of the page to clearly identify that they could go deeper into content.
I think, looking at this from the outside in as well, as far as, a B2B sector and this type of product and type of business, if you're landing on this website, it's probably because you've either searched for something that they do and it's relevant that you're looking for. You probably haven't just tripped and fallen and landed on this specific site and business selling and providing these specific solutions. It's a hyper relevant, hyper targeted, hyper kind of like niche, market in the B2B or direct to consumer space. So, first off, you probably don't need to overly emphasize and overly educate everybody throughout this journey. And I think it comes down to talking to the client base that that you're trying to acquire in the language that they will speak. And I think it's probably done a fairly good job of the language side of it. The banner side of it, I'm quoting kind of user experience principles here, where scrolling banners are a fairly dated way of presenting content. Nobody really gets to the 4th banner. Nobody will probably get to the 3rd banner. People will probably scroll past the 1st one, especially on mobile. Look at stacked content, look at other ways to make it interactive. But a traditional kind of scrolling banner is probably not the right way to get those 4 messages. If those are your 4 key things you want somebody to understand, there is probably a better way to do that on a stacked device or mobile device.
Yeah. No, I also agree with that sentiment. And also to build on your point around, the B2B audience, how it's very niche. Sometimes we assume that, because there are experts already in this field, and you might assume that they know what they're looking for. However, no matter if you're B2B knowledgeable, just the act of searching for information is, to me, is a human thing. So everyone needs a way to navigate, and everyone craves a simple experience, right, to find the information that they're looking for. So I think off the bat, there's lots of great content, to learn. But if it is if you do know what you're looking for, to your point, I think there's ways we could streamline some of this content so that we could get them to, product information a little bit faster.
Yeah, I think part of it comes down to distilling what actions you want those customers to take as well. What customers are you going to be bringing to your site? Some that want to learn more, some that want to get in touch. Do you have a direct-to-consumer offering? Do you have an online quote form? Like, what objective is it that you're looking to kind of, to guide, and what does success look like? Is it an inquiry? Get a quote, or a contact us form being completed? What's that action that you want each of those people visiting your site that are looking for your product or services to take? If it's not an add to basket or an add to cart button, from the site specifically, what other actions can they take in order to kind of get in touch and, really sanity check and speak to somebody to scope out, projects or whatever it is that they're looking to achieve. Apologies if I'm being overly vague. I know nothing about fiber optic products and components. So yeah,
I'm far from being an expert as well, but again, we're evaluating the site experience principles, and when it comes to navigating the content, I still think that there's ways that we could help streamline and point people to content in a more efficient manner. When we start thinking about getting into some of the actual product components, again, here we have lots of great educational content, right, to learn more about fiber optics. So maybe this is some good bedtime reading for us, Jason, if we want to learn more about this category. But if we want to get to actual products and see specs, right now it's still been quite a journey just to get there. But once we do get there, now we could start seeing some of their offerings. And here you can see that they have content buried in PDFs. I think one of the things with PDFs is that although it might look nice, presentable, downloadable, it's not indexable. So all this rich copy and content, right, this stuff might not necessarily work to the benefit of having a more accurate site search capability, or even the ability to compare products. So burying a lot of content in PDF, I think is going to help, it's going to hinder the research process, because there's just more clicks, more tasks or actions that users need to take to learn more about the product.
It takes you off the site as well. So it's opened up another tab that's taken you kind of off the main site that you were on, forcing you to click back.
Yeah, so as you deep dive further into the product, again, a lot of this stuff is buried in a PDF. So information could live. See, all this spec information is probably useful information that could be beneficial to have on this page, and then maybe all those specs could come to life in a product comparison tool. Because when you start thinking about this page here, this listing page, there is a lot of choice, right? So the whole choice paralysis problem, there's a lot to, it's hard to understand, where to even begin, which type of fiber optic cable we should be going with.
I mean, and ultimately, the next step is how to order. Says contact us on this phone number and this email address. There's no, you're still having to contact the company anyway, potentially. where you will still probably have to ask questions, that you've gated, you've gated the details of how to get in touch so far through the process that there's going to be a much easier way, much further up the funnel to potentially act as more of a consultant. Again, the AI side of things, from a sales point of view, is there something we can help with? Do you have any questions? Here's some FAQs. Do you know what you're looking for? How do we create some product filters or kind of surveys or ways to drill down to the products that you're looking for by some type of questionnaire? What types of products are you looking for this? Are you looking for this? Some really, really nicely defined, set of questions, product customizer, something like that, that will get you to the filtered tree of products that might be relevant to you, for you to then be able to get in touch with a list of filtered products based on the initial information that you've got.
Yeah. And then you could also imagine what that experience would be on mobile. So taking that, so having all that content buried, behind PDFs, and then doing that on a mobile device, I think that just adds more to the number of steps, to get to that rich content. And again, not being able to effectively compare. But when it comes to, the Corning site experience, I do want to jump down to the key takeaways, since we have 2 more site experiences to evaluate. I would say, we keep the research simple. Don't overwhelm buyers. So there is lots of content, that users can navigate through, but maybe this is an opportunity to use, like the chat functionality that you mentioned in the previous example, to help guide them to content. Or maybe this is something that we could incorporate with digital assistants, and especially visual configurators. If you think about this type of product, right, like fiber optics is just one piece of a solution, right? So knowing which fiber optic cable goes with the right coverings, with the right panels, that information is really hard to understand what pieces go together. So I think having a solution that could help understand how to bundle products could be very useful for a Corning website to help streamline that research experience for their buyers.
That's an incredibly valid point. I know that we're very, very pushed for time as well. I could talk tons about that, but the ability to increase average order value, if you're not doing that on site, to be able to advise the customer to see what products, you buy this, all these things you're either going to need if you don't have them, or would probably go with that in some way, shape or form. It's all about increasing average order value, either on site or via a sales consultant.
No, for sure. So the next site experience that I want to cover is the Kitchenaid.com. So Kitchenaid, another world-leading home appliance manufacturer that builds everything from major appliances to countertop appliances. Probably most recognized for their iconic stand mixer. So let's dive into Kitchenaid.com. And I'll just queue up the mobile experience here.
I mean, I was going to say overall, this site, very aesthetically pleasing, menus in the right place. No offense to anybody from Bingo. I think I'll let you carry on, Rodney. But from my point of view, it's a good example of a direct consumer site.
Yes, definitely the imagery really vibrant, really like this lifestyle really brings the brand to life. and you can see the close-ups and just that quality of the sharpness. This is definitely a great example of how to really showcase, like you said, the aesthetics of not just the website, but the actual appliance. The one thing I want to also bring everyone's attention to is the lookbook that they've built. And what I love about this is it emerges, the user. I think they've done some really great storytelling for the brand. And you can see how it is a very immersive experience where you can, once you scroll through, it really brings and highlights, all the different accents of one's kitchen. And again, also very aesthetically pleasing. But what I like about too is just like the whole navigation paradigm is, once you scroll through, you see these subtle images or animations that that help make those transitions and
little moments of delight as you scroll through that just lift the page a little bit, stop it from, make it feel a little bit more interactive and give it some depth. It gives it a proper, a polished and a premium feel. And again, especially if the products kind of are more of a polished premium luxury feel for the brand, and the site experience to represent that is incredibly important.
Absolutely. And as you engage through the story, you've got different hotspots where you could get more details on the product, which eventually drives people to, hopefully to a conversion. But it's a great example of how they take a story, but how they incorporate an e-commerce, lens to it by, putting the product into context. So yeah, I just wanted to walk through this example of a really good immersive experience of how KitchenAid's telling a story about their brand, and incorporating their products into the story. But one thing though that is I'd say could room for improvement is with that scrolling. There is no call to action to get back up. And I think from a mobile perspective, as scrolling is the normal behavior, as you scroll down deep, down to the page, getting back to the top menu, that should be a standard. So I think that's a big miss here. Now, the other thing I just want to point out too, so when I look at the navigation, I think this navigation, although there's lots of information, what I do like about it, it's cleanly organized, so you can see, the top level categories and all the respective subcategories.
It's very neat, isn't it?
Yeah. So for those that need to get to, if they know what they want. So if I know that I'm looking for a refrigerator, I could just go straight down to the respective category. So if I click on refrigerators, here on this landing page, again, very good use of imagery. But here there's a little bit of educational content to show why you should be considering, or considerations for getting a built-in refrigerator versus a freestanding refrigerator. And I think those are things that that should help at least guide the customer into the right path of purchasing a product. And then here I think they do a good job explaining a little bit on the top level categories, so they can start understanding some of the key differences of the configurations of why you should go with a French door versus a side-by-side. Now, when we go down into see the models, and I'll do this on mobile as well. So they do have pricing. So they do sell direct, but so they do have the MSRP price. But even if they didn't have pricing, MSRP was something that has, I think we could that every manufacturer could publish. So going back to that Beko example, right, when someone's trying to make a decision, that pricing is probably a key consideration on someone's decision, right, purchase decision. So having that information is critical. And I'm just going to click on the compare as well. So I think with this site experience, this looks pretty intuitive to see which features, apply to which model. What I do like about this as well is that you have the ability to further explain what each feature does. So there is a little bit of that educational content. But when you start getting down into some of these other feature attributes, some of them get a little bit technical and don't necessarily know exactly what some of these things mean. So I think that it's starting to overwhelm.
I was going to say, some of this going off the page as well.
Yes, so some of it looks like it is going beyond a breaking point. So it looks like there is a broken template, which I imagine is not intentional. Or, sorry, yes, it's not intentional. So it could be a broken template. But I think the point here is that, when it comes to showing information, it's how do we show like the most critical information to the customers to help them make them decide, right? When it comes to making purchases, the one thing I also want to point out is, as I was going through their support section, they had this help content which contains some actually useful information on how to choose the right wall oven, or how to choose, or how to buy the right refrigerator. So these types of buying guides, I think.
That's, love that idea. Where do you start? What do you look out for? What's important to you? What size, appliances is right. I also really like the fact that comparing items is still, tracking it at the bottom, as far as kind of like a pop-up, and you can then refer back to what you've got as a compared item once you've gone through your kind of buying guide and sanity checked whether the information that you're looking at is the pertinent information for you.
Yeah, so I know we're going to be hitting our time very soon, so I do hate rushing this, but I do want to just go to the key takeaways for the Kitchenaid. I think one of the key takeaways is, again, immerse your shoppers in storytelling, and I think they did a great job with the lookbook page that really shows that immersive experience as you scroll, those subtle animations, and how they sprinkle different products so that they could go deeper into the product pages. So it was really great use of imagery and video, and showing the content in the right context, right? So I think that last piece of what we've shown of buying guides hitting in the support section, right? Support typically is content that's geared towards owners of products, not necessarily new shoppers or new buyers. So I think it would be good for the KitchenAid team to pull those shopping tips more to your product discovery pages, right? Like your refrigerator landing page or your whatever category landing page. So the final experience is Sony, one of the world's leading consumer electronics brand. So let me queue up this website here. And what I do love about the Sony website is they do have a nice, simple, intuitive navigation. Right. So if we were to go into their audio category, and then we're to click onto their head, we could see all the different subcategories within the audio space. And then once we see the headphones, we could see the different types of headphones, and they set the expectations again of how many products we could start seeing within the subcategories.
It's very visual as well, and it's almost slightly like Apple. If anybody's been on Apple's website, where the product imagery is very focal when it comes to the look, the feel of the specific items themselves. I'm talking more on desktop rather than mobile, as you're flicking through the mobile. Yeah.
So if I click on here, I think it's a very seamless transition over to mobile. I'm not sure if I've lost Jason, but I'll still continue. So when we start diving deeper into the products, I'll just click on the headband versions. Again, I think from a listing perspective, very clean, clear listing pages, so you could see some of the top key features. You could see the ratings, and also has their comparison, right? So you could easily compare products. So what I'm going to do here very quickly is just compare. We've got a $2,000 headphone compared with a 350 pound, and with a 250 pound. So when it comes to this compare chart, we have such a very varied price range when it comes to these devices. And you could see some of the key attributes that we're comparing, such as the wearing style, the weight, cord length. But as I go through these different attributes, I still don't know why I need to pay 2,000 pounds, and why this one is better than this 250 pound headphone. So I think one of the themes is the completeness of data and making sure that we have the right attributes that we're using to help customers decide. We have to be very thoughtful on choosing those right attributes so that we could actually help customers narrow down to the different products. Now, I do want to look at another category around camera lenses. So what I love about Sony's product detail pages is that they really bring the product to life. So when you click on the slideshow, you can see lots of different angled shots. So they've got amazing use of imagery to see the top view, the bottom view, all the buttons. So you could really get immersed in almost feel what the product feel what the product physical aspects are. And as you go down, you can see how they've incorporated a lot of video to really show some of the features and how they bring it to life. And one of the key things that they've also include is example shots of their of what this camera could produce. So showing actual images that this camera could take is putting proof in the pudding, and I think this is very helpful in showing and convincing customers how the product could benefit them. So I hate rushing this, but I do want to just jump to the key takeaways, and would be happy to do a further follow-up on this experience. But one of the key takeaways from the Sony experience is show the proof, share the outputs of your product. So with all the different camera lenses, showing examples of the photo shoots that were taken or the video shots, these are real outputs that could help convince customers onto why they should be using that product. And then again, this was a common theme across a lot of these site experiences, is making sure that we use the right data points to make sure that customers could make that decision, right, and narrow down and explain why that product is suitable. Now, when we look at the whole theme of this all, the main takeaways for looking at these site experiences is just engage your buyers with storytelling. You got to bring your products to life and really explain why. Why us over your competition, right? And you can tell that story with the imagery, producing those sample outputs of your product, and really enforce it that way. Second thing is guide your buyer, right? Don't make them overthink, right? It's not enough just to have all this educational content, but you need to be helpful and make sure that you serve that right content when it's needed. And then lastly, maintain your own product data sets. Ensure that not just for completeness and consistency, but choose the right attributes that could actually make them decide, what's right for them. Now, we will be sending you, as a follow-up, we would be sending you a link where you could do your very own self-assessment. So if you want to understand how your site rates against the criteria of navigation, product discovery, data quality, mobile friendliness, we'll be able to share with you a tool very shortly so that you can do that your very own assessment. And also, lastly, we do want to hear from you. So if you do want to have your own site evaluated and reviewed at our next episode, or if there's a competitor that you want to do a deep dive on and want us to share a perspective, please send us your feedback. So thank you very much for joining today's episode. We look forward to the next. Thank you very much.